To find family, Yummy took to the streets, where he was taken in by the Black Disciples street gang, who nurtured the development of his criminal nature. By the time Yummy was 8 in January of 1992, he had been arrested. In July 1992, at age 9, he was prosecuted for robbery, but the case was dropped when a witness did not show up. In January 1993, still only 9 years of age, he was prosecuted for attempted robbery in which a gun was used, but not by him. In April of 1993, he was in court on robbery charges for stealing a jacket with several other defendants, but was released when the victim could not identify him as one of the attackers. In May of 1993, he was charged with attempted robbery, but the case was dropped in February of 1994 when a key witness failed to appear. In June of 1993, he was among several defendants charged in 2 cases with auto theft and arson. One case was dropped when he pled guilty to the other. Along with his January 1993 robbery charge, he was sentenced to 2 years of probation in February of 1994, while he was only 10 years of age. After being committed to Lawrence Hall Youth Services Maryville Academy, a home for abused and neglected children, in early 1994, Yummy quickly fled to return to the Chicago streets. According to Newsweek, Chicago police captured him in June and charged him with auto theft. He spent the next month in a jail-like facility for juveniles. On July 14th, he pled guilty to a violation of his probation. A DCFS caseworker recommended the court keep Yummy in the county's juvenile detention center or an emergency shelter until the agency could make arrangements to transfer him to an out-of-state facility. With long waiting lists and placements taking months, juvenile court judge Thomas Sumner, unwilling to keep him imprisoned with older youths and lacking a facility that could treat him, released Yummy to the care of his grandmother, overruling a previous judge's order that barred DCFS from placing Yummy at her house. Shortly thereafter, on August 15th, along with a group of youths, he was arrested for breaking into a school. Ominously, the Chicago Tribune's Chicagoland section ran a headline, "Investigator Burnout is Feared at DCFS," on Tuesday, August 30th, while Yummy was on the run. The story lead reads, "The fear is that a tragedy is waiting to happen. The reality is that it very well could." In totality, Yummy was charged with 23 felonies and 5 misdemeanors in his short life. He was prosecuted on 8 felonies and convicted twice, sentenced to probation, the most punitive penalty available under state law at the time for children under 13. Even for murder, state law barred jailing children under 13 in an Illinois Department of Corrections youth facility. Notwithstanding his penchant for felonious behavior, some say Yummy was still a tender child. He liked the water and was beginning to swim at a pool on 104th Street. He was known for pushing kids into the water. A week before his death, Robert visited the neighborhood school, demolished in the late 90s, on 137 West 108th Place. Psychological reports taken when Yummy was 10 concluded he was illiterate and could not perform simple addition. He said he had a frog at home and wanted to give this gift to a staff member, said Principal Jacqueline Carruthers, although he had not attended the school in the previous academic year. He was smiling and happy, an 11-year-old child. Hello and welcome once again to the Relentless Watchman podcast. Today I'd like to speak about creating a groundwork, a basis for our children to properly succeed in life, regardless of their background, the community that they live in, steps that we can take on the ground level that begins at the home and in the community to assure that our children get what they need to have the ability to succeed. Yummy Sandifer, Robert Yummy Sandifer, is a name that if you are not familiar with, you need to become familiar with. There was a recent piece that was written by one of the Chicago newspapers, I believe, that I have not yet read, that brought his case back to my mind and my heart as well, and prompted me to create a short episode to speak on what is a very serious issue that has the attention. Yummy Sandifer's case, Robert Sandifer's case, is the one that brought attention even internationally about the situation, the incidents, the subculture that is in many of our urban communities in the United States of America. Being a leading country, a country that is supposed to be respected throughout the entire world, one that's considered a world power, it's a shame that we still have these issues that are taking place on these city streets when we have the resources to combat it, when we have the people with the knowledge that even have created successful strategies that we can refer to in order to reverse this cycle of violence, these unsafe communities, which leave our children, these unsafe environments, which leave our children scarred for life, that devoid them of the inner part of a person that produces the love and the respect for others, that prevent people from considering taking another person's life. There's something that is innate, that should be innate, that is ripped from our children's soul, and that places them in a position where they don't care about anything, not about themselves or anyone else. And once you begin to embody self-hate, and you lose the ability to see good in life, you become capable of doing anything. And that's a situation that's a reality to many of our children across the entire United States of America. And that just, it shouldn't be. That should not be. So this discussion is focused on that. Basically, how unsafe communities, unsafe homes, create an energy within a child that makes them devoid of love. The fact that they do not receive it, the fact that they do not know what it is, and the fact that many of them suffer through traumatic incidents that even make them more callous about living and about other people's lives as well. There are things that we can do to stop it, but this is something that nobody cares about. Today's focus, many people are focused on the issue of reparations, on rights due to a person's sexual preference. There are several prevailing issues that a lot of people are focused on. Who makes the best chicken sandwich? You know, that's getting so much media attention that it's ridiculous. And at the same time, our children are being murdered in the streets by other children. And it almost seems like that's something that we do not care about. I post things related to this issue often on Watchman Security Instagram page. So if you have not been by there, please go by there. I just want to bring awareness to this issue. This is, to me, should be the most prevailing and the most important issue on all of our minds before anything else, because of the fact that this has to do with our future as a nation, as a world. If we have a certain part of society that does not have the opportunity to grow, to learn, to live without the fear of death being at the forefront of their mind, we're going to lose that whole segment. And when we lose them, that doesn't mean necessarily that they're going to lose their lives, but they might lose their love of life or their respect of it, which will affect us all. So I'm passionate about it because these are human beings. These are children. These are babies that need the attention and the care of us as a community. The case of Robert Sandifer, his mother was suffering from mental illness. She was a abuser of drugs, and she made her living through prostitution, which ushers in all types, which opens the door for all types of individuals to have access to her children. Yami Sandifer, at the age of between 18 months and maybe 2 years of age, was taken into DCFS custody, if I remember correctly. I will try to post a link, or matter of fact, what I'll do is offer up my email address. So anyone who is interested in reading this article, this is from years ago though, maybe 17 years ago, this article was written. It'll give you some insight of how he grew up. But when they took him into their custody, they found various types of abuse that he had suffered as a baby, as a toddler. Scars and cigarette burns all over his body. Signs of sexual abuse or assault. These are things that he experienced from the time that he can actually conceive the fact that he was an individual life in the world. So imagine the effects that it has on a child during their development. Imagine what effects it has on that child's psyche. And imagine what type of spirit that it will produce in that child during their development. These are the type of things that are happening daily. For those of us who work in law enforcement or education, we are dealing with these children on a daily basis, but nobody is coming to their aid. Nobody is assuring that they receive what they need in order to grow as a child is supposed to grow. They are living lives that, if it was a animal rescue company, this person would get, or organization, a person would get 60, 70 years in jail. The treatment, this is the treatment that children are getting, and nobody's focusing on that issue. Our communities are not safe. Children learn at a very early age how to navigate through a neighborhood where there is constant violence on a consistent and daily basis. No one is taking it upon themselves to go into those communities and to organize them and to create strategies and get personnel to assure that these acts do not continue to occur. They are occurring because nobody's doing anything. We're taking on fights that are important. But just like the 24 hours that we receive in a day, those have to be allocated. Many of us have to work at least a third of that day in order to be able to provide for ourselves and our families. The same type of attitude needs to be applied to creating a safe community and environment for our children. A volunteer security team. We saw it in Chicago. In Chicago, there are black women sitting on the corners of Inglewood, creating activities to engage the children and doing their best to deter violence from occurring in this neighborhood. These are women standing in the forefront. This is not a forum that we're going to use to bash any individual sex, but where are the men? There are men that are engaging. I want to put that out before somebody jumps in the comments section. Why are you saying this? Yes, we have them, but we have men in communities who are doing nothing as well. What are we going to do about this situation? How are we going to address it? And are we realizing, are we really thinking about the fact that we're losing another generation because of our lack of action? Something should be boiling in a person's heart, in their mind. Something should be heating them up for them to say, there's enough of this. I'm done. I'm tired. And it's not going to happen anymore. And this should be something that is so serious to the point where that person will look to say, and I remember hearing brothers and these were gang members in LA after the riots saying that if they have to give their life so that the generation behind them can grow up, then they would do that. We need to have that same mentality. And if we don't have it, we're going to continue to lose generations of children to degradation and to death and to incarceration. This cycle can be turned, but it's going to take everybody's hands on deck. Start with a small community of children. Start with those right on your block. There's somebody in your particular neighborhood who you are cool with, who you share conversations with, and who has a similar thought about how community should be. That's the beginning of your organization. Have discussions starting with those between you two about what we can do. If everybody gave 2 hours out of their day, all you would need was 12 to 24 people. I prefer doing things in pairs to provide a watch over a block. You have different people who work different shifts. Midnights, afternoons, and days. A couple of hours before or after work, you'll have coverage for the entire day. You're in those communities. As a group of people, you can engage those folks who are committing these acts of violence and let them know that this will not be occurring anymore. We're done. It's over with. No more shooting. If there's a state that doesn't allow concealed carry, I don't know of it. What are you waiting for? A community divided is one that can be overtaken. But if you develop that same mind, and if you reach out, we don't have communities or neighborhoods anymore. There are people that don't know their next door neighbor. They refuse to speak to them or talk to them. This has furthered the cause of the person that has that mentality to do wrong. That's furtherance of their cause, because they know that there's no pushback to their behavior, because you guys won't even talk to each other. You won't communicate. You won't organize. You won't get together. You're selfish to the point where you look at things as being another person's individual issue, until that bullet enters your home and strikes you or your wife or your child. Then it becomes personal. Why not deter it from happening by getting in the forefront of the issue, by saying, I'm not going to wait till it falls at my doorstep. I'm going to take action before this happens. I'm going to do something now. Now, this is not to say that a death cannot still befall your child. I have a personal friend who, I think at the time of his son's death, he had probably about 20 years of serving, and I'm talking about going hard, really policing, going after the murderers, the robbers. I don't think if this guy wrote a traffic ticket in his life, he was probably a rookie. And not to say that traffic isn't important. Traffic enforcement is very important, but that shouldn't be the focus of any police department. I don't care where you are. And unfortunately, a lot of them do that for revenue. I've never been a revenue producing police officer. I'm a crime reducing one. And that's what he was. His name is Ron. He lost his son. He went hard in those streets. He still lost his son. So it can happen. But if you don't do nothing, you're multiplying the possibility of it happening. You're actually part of the problem. Your lack of doing something is the problem. In the streets, as a police officer, working some of the toughest streets in this entire United States of America, not just the streets of Chicago, in the United States of America. I'm talking about places where they're shooting every single day. I'm engaging folks, not just the ones that I'm actively having to police to prevent these atrocities from occurring in the first place, but I'm engaging the community members as well. And I'm in their face with the fact that you are not doing anything. You can be very critical of the police department, but what are you doing as an individual to change anything? You're paying your taxes. Oh, that's great. Everybody pays their taxes. Sex offenders and murderers do too. Every time they go to a store and buy a product, they pay taxes. So are they doing something to help as well? What action are you doing outside? What type of footwork are you putting in? What type of man hours? We can do this, but we have to do it together. Don't be anti-me. Let's partnership. I'm giving the full-time attention to it, but I need you as well. You're there all the time, even when I'm gone. Training. Develop a community block of training. Emergency planning. We're going to bring a person who has developed a concept of community emergency response on very soon. It needs to be sooner than soon now, because I'm trying to shock the conscience of anybody that's going to listen to this podcast to realize that we have been in a state of emergency for 50, 60 years. And there are not any boots on the ground addressing the issue other than the ones that are being paid by the government. Unfortunately, all of those individuals don't have the same mind or the same understanding or knowledge that's needed in order to truly attack the issue. They're going to waste time on citizens who they should be partnering with, because they either don't understand or know, or they don't give a damn. Both of which are detrimental to making our communities better. And if I sound pissed, it's because I am. We train, and when I say we, I mean watchmen, we train individuals to be able to protect themselves. We can do this as groups. We can develop plans and strategies in order to keep people safe. I'm willing to instruct people on the same concepts, the same tactics as used by police departments. I've actually created strategies and tactics that people are still using to this day. My police training began well before I entered into a police department. I had to navigate those streets for the longest of time without any type of protection on myself. And I've witnessed a lot of incidents involving violence. And I understand that criminal mentality and how they do things. Everything is ambush strategies. So we develop counter ambush strategies. I'm willing to do that with community members in order to make sure that they carry out the security of their own neighborhoods in the safest fashion possible. Of course, the first thing we'll be looking for is a person to say, listen, I'll work with you on that. We don't have to go, we're not going to be all knuckling up as a fight. Let's strap our guns on. We got to go out here and shoot it out with these guys. No, we want you to change your behavior or take it, I don't know, to an island or something somewhere, because we don't want it in another community. What was the Tom Hanks movie where he crashed the plane? Take it there. All y'all can do what you want to do on that little spot that he was on. That's fine. But we can't have it in any of our communities, because I don't want you to push you out of mine into another one. That's why we have to do this as a collective strategy where every community develops this type of mentality, gains the information, the tactics, the training necessary in order to implement it, and we all do it at one time. But what it's going to take is a shock of the conscience, because unfortunately we've gotten to a point where that's just the way it is. And I'm not comfortable with children having to live in that type of environment. That's not the way it is to me. That's not the way it is. And that's not the way it's going to be as long as I can do something about it. So we have to shock that psyche and say, what the blank are we doing? We've been dropped the ball on this. Let's wake up and change things. And in the development of strategies in dealing with any type of crime reduction, I've received crime reduction awards on more than one occasion. You treat it holistically. So if I have an issue with prostitution, I don't just keep locking up the prostitutes or try to compile charges or, conduct search warrants and things of that nature. That's not the only process and recreating a community. If I'm going to attack prostitution, I'm going to go to root cause of it. There is obviously a lack of ability to do something other than that. A lot of prostitutes start as children. Some of them are even, I've seen situations where they have been pimped out by their own mothers. So there's a blight that goes with that entering into the prostitution. Many of them come from backgrounds where they were social and economically disadvantaged. And that's where the predators come, because they know that those people don't have the resources, that a majority of folks don't care. So that's easy pickings over there. And that's an issue too. And that's one that you'll find across the board. I've heard people from adjacent communities say, oh, those people over there are people. And they deserve everything that you deserve as a person, as a human being. So stop looking at them as those people. And this is across races. I've seen this black talking about black folks, whites talking about white people, Latinos talking about Latino people. And it's ridiculous. Those are people. They're human beings. 100% across the board, you can't say that those are bad folks. There are a small amount of those people who are taking advantage of the fact that nobody else cares about them. And that's how those things happen. But getting back to the prostitution, I'm going to bring out human services. I'm going to bring out the local employment organization of the state and training, whatever division that's over that. In Illinois, we have the IDES, Illinois Department of Employment Security. During my time, they would pay up to like close to $8,000 for a person to be trained in a specific field. I was sending folks for electronics, for a basic electrician, and these people were, gangbangers, had become, they were doing the wiring for new homes. You know what I mean? So there was an opportunity for them to change their lives. It's not like, listen, were you going to be out here trading bullets because you're selling dope in my neighborhood? Listen, we need this to stop, and it's going to stop, but we have alternatives as well. So for those prostitutes, they might have some health issues. So I need the Department of Health out to address whatever issues they have, because you're looking at it holistically. I'm going to give them the opportunity to achieve some type of training and a stipend that they can live upon while they're getting it and completing it. I'm going to have job placement for them. You're going to transform this person. A lot of times when people are in situations, they can't see their way out of it because they're dealing with the day-to-day. How am I going to make it till tomorrow? So you're offering them a plan. They can actually see something where I'm here today, but I can be there tomorrow. And that's how you holistically treat issues of crime. That's how you transform communities. And it can happen. It can happen in these violent communities where our children are able to focus. I'm speaking from experience. This is not something that I need to research or read articles about. I've lived that. I've been in a school setting where I'm walking with my back against the wall throughout the school because I'm not affiliated or connected. I chose not to join the gang. And there's something that comes with that, and it's not good. So I kept my back against the wall because I didn't want to be a victim. I had to fight. I had to use diplomacy. I had to run a lot. Those are different things I had to do. You think I was concentrating or thinking about whether or not how much I'm going to study for a test? My concern was living tomorrow. It wasn't how well I'm going to do on a test or what I need to read or what homework I need to turn in tomorrow. I'm not turning in no homework. I got to get through Inglewood to get to my house. There's a gang war going on. Bullets are flying every day. I'm getting checked with a Mac 10 or a Tech 9 by cats I don't even know who think I'm some type of opposition. They shaking me down like I'm the police. I mean, like they're the police. Who can focus on school? Who can concentrate on developing themselves so that they can lead the type of life that, a child is supposed to dream about? I want to be this when I grow up. I want to be that when I grow up. Who's able to do that when that's their primary concern? Living, surviving, not being shot, not being murdered. That's an issue that we have as a community, and we have the resources. I can create plans. I'm willing. I do this stuff for free. I don't charge folks. I create plans for communities. I haven't charged them a dime. All I said is when you are ready to implement, all I say, when you are ready to implement the security services aspect of it, let me and my team come in to do that. Let watchmen be the security providers. But the plan is free. I'll get it. I'll do the reaching out to the community organizations and get the people on board to come out and be a part of it. I'll do all the lead work. Just when you're ready to secure the security services, you're ready to implement that part, which is a very important part, then call me in to do it. Or if you all want to train as a community, call me in to do the training. There are people willing. I know I'm not the only one. I worked with folks. Those are the ones that I would align myself. You have to be pissed off about the issue of safe neighborhoods. Those how I chose my partners. We ain't allowing this. We used to go 2 men into a spot where we knew 40, 50 people on the street. Because I don't, listen, if you're scared, you ain't got to go around there. But this stuff gonna stop today. That's the type of attitudes we need to have in order to make the changes that are required to give our children an edge. Because right now they're on edge. They're on edge. They're scared. They show it in different ways. Some of them act out. Some of them are class clowns. Some of them are just disengaged. They're on cloud 9. They're floating away. They're attracted to the drugs to help them get there because they're trying to cope with the reality of the fear that they have, the fact that they're not able to relax and just be a child. And I'm not talking about, children are the most important to me. Yes, I recall the instances in my life. I recall when my probably 6-year-old nephew, they were trying to jump my 6-year-old nephew on the west side, and I jumped into a crowd of 5 or 6 and swung on every last one of them I could before getting, knocked down and kicked and stomped my darn self. I recall instances like that. I was probably 10 years old. These were teenagers. This is the reality of the communities that a lot of our children grow up in, and they're fearful, rightfully so. So, yeah, there's something deep in my heart where I resent the fact that they don't have that opportunity, and I channel that energy into making sure that those children are safe. And I do it because I'm pissed and I know that it shouldn't be. And that's something that we all have to get to. We all need to be pissed about this because that's the only way that something is going to change. Because right now we're obviously cool with it. Because we ain't doing nothing. There shouldn't be any more Yummy Sandifers. There doesn't have to be. In memory of his life, I'm going to do like Tupac. When Tupac made the song Young Nigga and dedicated to the memory Robert Yummy Sandifer. I'm dedicating this podcast to his memory as well, because I'm going to continue to push people to get pissed about the issue of safe communities. Because when a person doesn't feel safe, especially a child, nothing else matters. I thank you once again for listening to the Relentless Watchman podcast. Hopefully, this has been an awakening to you and a call to action for you to actually get up and do something for a change. If this information pissed you off, I have done well. And I'm sure my Creator is smiling down on me. If it has not, then you're part of the issue. And I will hope that you would look at yourself and say, listen, I don't want to be the part of the issue anymore. Because you're the problem. You're the reason why our communities are in a terrible condition that they are today. You're the reason behind it. Because you won't stand and you won't do anything to make them better. So hopefully that pissed you off, because you're the blame. Whenever any child is shot or killed or is afraid to leave out their house to even walk to school in the morning, it's your fault. So get pissed and let's create better communities together. Thank you once again for listening. Goodbye.